Welcome to Catholic Culture Audiobooks, part of the Catholic Culture Podcast Network and a production of CatholicCulture.org. Visit our website for Catholic news, incisive commentary, and a treasure trove of other Catholic resources, or sign up for one of our email newsletters at CatholicCulture.org/newsletters. Today's reading, The Rule of St. Benedict, chapters 39 through 73, narrated by James T. Majewski. Chapter 39. On the Measure of Food. We think it sufficient for the daily dinner, whether at the 6th or the 9th hour, that every table have 2 cooked dishes, on account of individual infirmities, so that he who for some reason cannot eat of the one may make his meal of the other. Therefore let 2 cooked dishes suffice for all the brethren, and if any fruit or fresh vegetables are available, let a 3rd dish be added. Let a good pound weight of bread suffice for the day, whether there be only one meal or both dinner and supper. If they are to have supper, the cellarer shall reserve a 1/3 of that pound to be given them at supper. But if it happens that the work was heavier, it shall lie within the abbot's discretion and power, should it be expedient, to add something to the fare. Above all things, however, overindulgence must be avoided, and a monk must never be overtaken by indigestion, for there is nothing so opposed to the Christian character as overindulgence, according to our Lord's words, "See to it that your hearts be not burdened with overindulgence." Young boys shall not receive the same amount of food as their elders, but less, and frugality shall be observed in all circumstances. Except the sick who are very weak, let all abstain entirely from eating the flesh of 4-footed animals. Chapter 40. On the Measure of Drink. Everyone has his own gift from God, one in this way and another in that. It is therefore with some misgiving that we regulate the measure of other men's sustenance. Nevertheless, keeping in view the needs of weaker brethren, we believe that a hemina of wine a day is sufficient for each, but those to whom God gives the strength to abstain should know that they will receive a special reward. If the circumstances of the place, or the work, or the heat of summer require a greater measure, the superior shall use his judgment in the matter, taking care always that there be no occasion for surfeit or drunkenness. We read, it is true, that wine is by no means a drink for monks, but since the monks of our day cannot be persuaded of this, let us at least agree to drink sparingly, not to satiety, because wine makes even the wise fall away. But where the circumstances of the place are such that not even the measure prescribed above can be supplied, but much less or none at all, let those who live there bless God, and not murmur. Above all things do we give this admonition, that they abstain from murmuring. Chapter 41. At what hours the meals should be taken. From Holy Easter until Pentecost, let the brethren take dinner at the 6th hour and supper in the evening. From Pentecost throughout the summer, unless the monks have work in the fields or the excessive heat of summer oppresses them, let them fast on Wednesdays and Fridays until the 9th hour. On the other days, let them dine at the 6th hour. This dinner at the 6th hour shall be the daily schedule if they have work in the fields or the heat of summer is extreme. The abbot's foresight shall decide on this. Thus it is that he should adapt and arrange everything in such a way that souls may be saved and that the brethren may do their work without just cause for murmuring. From the Ides of September until the beginning of Lent, let them always take their dinner at the 9th hour. In Lent, until Easter, let them dine in the evening. But this evening hour shall be so determined that they will not need the light of a lamp while eating, but everything will be accomplished while it is still daylight. Indeed, at all seasons let the hour, whether for supper or for dinner, be so arranged that everything will be done by daylight. Chapter 42. That no one speak after compline. Monks ought to be zealous for silence at all times, but especially during the hours of the night. For every season, therefore, whether there be fasting or 2 meals, let the program be as follows. If it be a season when there are 2 meals, Then as soon as they have risen from supper, they shall all sit together, and one of them shall read the conferences or the lives of the fathers, or something else that may edify the hearers. Not the Heptateuch or the Book of Kings, however, because it will not be expedient for weak minds to hear those parts of Scripture at that hour, but they shall be read at other times. If it be a day of fast, then having allowed a short interval after vespers, they shall proceed at once to the reading of the conferences, as prescribed above, 4 or 5 pages being read, or as much as time permits, so that during the delay provided by this reading, all may come together, including those who may have been occupied in some work assigned them. When all therefore are gathered together, let them say Compline, and when they come out from Compline, no one shall be allowed to say anything from that time on. And if anyone should be found evading this rule of silence, let him undergo severe punishment. An exception shall be made if the need of speaking to guests should arise, or if the abbot should give someone an order, but even this should be done with the utmost gravity and the most becoming restraint. Chapter 43. On those who come late to the work of God or to table. At the hour for the divine office, as soon as the signal is heard, let them abandon whatever they may have in hand, and hasten with the greatest speed, yet with seriousness, so that there is no excuse for levity. Let nothing, therefore, be put before the work of God. If at the night office anyone arrives after the Glory be to the Father of Psalm 94, which psalm for this reason we wish to be said very slowly and protractedly, let him not stand in his usual place in the choir, but let him stand last of all, or in a place set aside by the abbot for such negligent ones, in order that they may be seen by him and by all. He shall remain there until the work of God has been completed, and then do penance by a public satisfaction. The reason why we have judged it fitting for them to stand in the last place or in a place apart is that, being seen by all, they may amend for very shame. For if they remain outside of the oratory, there will perhaps be someone who will go back to bed and sleep, or at least seat himself outside and indulge in idle talk, and thus an occasion will be provided for the evil one. But let them go inside, that they may not lose the whole office, and may amend for the future. At the day hours, anyone who does not arrive at the work of God until after the verse and the Glory be to the Father of the first psalm following it, shall stand in the last place, according to our ruling above. Nor shall he presume to join the choir in their chanting until he has made satisfaction, unless the abbot should pardon him and give him permission. But even then the offender must make satisfaction for his fault. Anyone who does not come to table before the verse, so that all together may say the verse and the oration, and all sit down to table at the same time, anyone who through his own carelessness or bad habit does not come on time, shall be corrected for this up to the second time. If then he does not amend, he shall not be allowed to share in the common table, but shall be separated from the company of all, and made to eat alone, and his portion of wine shall be taken away from him, until he has made satisfaction and has amended. And let him suffer a like penalty who is not present at the verse said after the meal. And let no one presume to take any food or drink before or after the appointed time. But if anyone is offered something by the superior and refuses to take it, then when the time comes that he desires what he formerly refused or something else, let him receive nothing whatever until he has made proper satisfaction. Chapter 44. How the excommunicated are to make satisfaction. One who for serious faults is excommunicated from oratory and table shall make satisfaction as follows. At the hour when the celebration of the work of God is concluded in the oratory, let him lie prostrate before the door of the oratory, saying nothing, but only lying prone with his face to the ground at the feet of all as they come out of the oratory. And let him continue to do this until the abbot judges that satisfaction has been made. Then, when he has come at the abbot's bidding, let him cast himself first at the abbot's feet, and then at the feet of all, that they may pray for him. And next, if the abbot so orders, let him be received into the choir, to the place which the abbot appoints, but with the provision that he shall not presume to intone psalm or lesson or anything else in the oratory without a further order from the abbot. Moreover, at every hour, when the work of God is ended, let him cast himself on the ground in the place where he stands, and let him continue to satisfy in this way until the abbot again orders him finally to cease from his satisfaction. But those who for slight faults are excommunicated only from table shall make satisfaction in the oratory, and continue in it till an order from the abbot, until he blesses them and says, "It is enough." Chapter 45. On those who make mistakes in the oratory. When anyone has made a mistake while reciting a psalm, a responsory, an antiphon, or a lesson, if he does not humble himself there before all by making a satisfaction, let him undergo a greater punishment, because he would not correct by humility what he did wrong through carelessness. But boys for such faults shall be whipped. Chapter 46. On those who fail in any other matters. When anyone is engaged in any sort of work, whether in the kitchen, in the cellar, in a shop, in the bakery, in the garden, while working at some craft or in any other place, and he commits some fault, or breaks something, or loses something, or transgresses in any other way whatsoever, if he does not come immediately before the abbot in the community of his own accord to make satisfaction and confess his fault, then when it becomes known through another, let him be subjected to a more severe correction. But if the sin-sickness of the soul is a hidden one, let him reveal it only to the abbot or to a spiritual father, who knows how to cure his own and others' wounds without exposing them and making them public. Chapter 47. On giving the signal for the time of the work of God. The indicating of the hour of the work of God by day and by night shall devolve upon the abbot, either to give the signal himself or to assign this duty to such a careful brother that everything will take place at the proper hours. Let the psalms and the antiphons be intoned by those who are appointed for it, in their order after the abbot. And no one shall presume to sing or read unless he can fulfill that office in such a way as to edify the hearers. Let this function be performed with humility, gravity, and reverence, and by him whom the abbot has appointed. Chapter 48. On the daily manual labor. Idleness is the enemy of the soul. Therefore the brethren should be occupied at certain times in manual labor, and again at fixed hours in sacred reading. To that end we think that the times for each may be prescribed as follows. From Easter until the calends of October, when they come out from prime in the morning, let them labor at whatever is necessary until about the 4th hour, and from the 4th hour until about the 6th, let them apply themselves to reading. After the 6th hour, having left the table, let them rest on their beds in perfect silence, or if anyone may perhaps want to read, let him read to himself in such a way as not to disturb anyone else. Let known be said rather early, at the middle of the 8th hour, and let them again do what work has to be done until vespers. And if the circumstances of the place or their property should require that they themselves do the work of gathering the harvest, let them not be discontented, for then are they truly monks, when they live by the labor of their hands, as did our fathers and the apostles. Let all things be done with moderation, however, for the sake of the faint-hearted. From the calends of October until the beginning of Lent, let them apply themselves to reading up to the end of the 2nd hour. At the 2nd hour let terce be said, and then let all labor at the work assigned them until noon. At the first signal for the hour of noon, let everyone break off from his work, and hold himself ready for the sounding of the 2nd signal. After the meal, let them apply themselves to their reading or to the psalms. On the days of Lent, from morning until the end of the 3rd hour, let them apply themselves to their reading, and from then until the end of the 10th hour let them do the work assigned them. And in these days of Lent they shall each receive a book from the library, which they shall read straight through from the beginning. These books are to be given out at the beginning of Lent. But certainly 1 or 2 of the seniors should be deputed to go about the monastery at the hours when the brethren are occupied in reading, and see that there be no lazy brother who spends his time in idleness or gossip, and does not apply himself to the reading, so that he is not only unprofitable to himself, but also distracts others. If such a one be found, which God forbid, let him be corrected once and a second time. If he does not amend, let him undergo the punishment of the rule in such a way that the rest may take warning. Moreover, one brother shall not associate with another at unseasonable hours. On Sundays, let all occupy themselves in reading, except those who have been appointed to various duties. But if anyone should be so negligent and shiftless that he will not or cannot study or read, let him be given some work to do, so that he will not be idle. Weak or sickly brethren should be assigned a task or craft of such a nature as to keep them from idleness, and at the same time not to overburden them or drive them away with excessive toil. Their weakness must be taken into consideration by the abbot. Chapter 49. On the Observance of Lent. Although the life of a monk ought to have about it at all times the character of a Lenten observance, yet since few have the virtue for that, we therefore urge that during the actual days of Lent the brethren keep their lives most pure, and at the same time wash away during these holy days all the negligences of other times. And this will be worthily done if we restrain ourselves from all vices and give ourselves up to prayer with tears, to reading, to compunction of heart, and to abstinence. During these days, therefore, let us increase somewhat the usual burden of our service, as by private prayers and by abstinence in food and drink. Thus everyone of his own will may offer God with joy of the Holy Spirit something above the measure required of him. From his body, that is, he may withhold some food, drink, sleep, talking and jesting, and with the joy of spiritual desire he may look forward to Holy Easter. Let each one, however, suggest to his abbot what it is that he wants to offer, and let it be done with his blessing and approval. For anything done without the permission of the spiritual father will be imputed to presumption and vainglory, and will merit no reward. Therefore let everything be done with the abbot's approval. Chapter 50. On brethren who are working far from the oratory, or are on a journey. Those brethren who are working at a great distance and cannot get to the oratory at the proper time, the abbot judging that such is the case, shall perform the work of God in the place where they are working, bending their knees in reverence before God. Likewise, those who have been sent on a journey shall not let the appointed hours pass by, but shall say the office by themselves as well as they can, and not neglect to render the task of their service. Chapter 51. On brethren who go not very far away. A brother who is sent out on some business and is expected to return to the monastery that same day shall not presume to eat while he is out, even if he is urgently requested to do so by any person whomsoever, unless he has permission from his abbot. And if he acts otherwise, let him be excommunicated. Chapter 52. On the Oratory of the Monastery. Let the oratory be what it is called, a place of prayer, and let nothing else be done there or kept there. When the work of God is ended, let all go out in perfect silence, and let reverence for God be observed, so that any brother who may wish to pray privately will not be hindered by another's misconduct. And at other times also, if anyone should want to pray by himself, let him go in simply and pray, not in a loud voice, but with tears and fervor of heart. He who does not say his prayers in this way, therefore, shall not be permitted to remain in the oratory when the work of God is ended, lest another be hindered, as we have said. Chapter 53. On the Reception of Guests. Let all guests who arrive be received like Christ, for he is going to say, I came as a guest, and you received me. And to all let due honor be shown, especially to the domestics of the faith and to pilgrims. As soon as a guest is announced, therefore, let the superior or the brethren meet him with all charitable service, and first of all let them pray together, and then exchange the kiss of peace. For the kiss of peace should not be offered until after the prayers have been said, on account of the devil's deceptions. In the salutation of all guests, whether arriving or departing, let all humility be shown. Let the head be bowed, or the whole body prostrated on the ground in adoration of Christ, who indeed is received in their persons. After the guests have been received and taken to prayer, let the superior or someone appointed by him sit with them. Let the divine law be read before the guest for his edification, and then let all kindness be shown him. The superior shall break his fast for the sake of a guest, unless it happens to be a principal fast day, which may not be violated. The brethren, however, shall observe the customary fasts. Let the abbot give the guests water for their hands, and let both abbot and community wash the feet of all guests. After the washing of the feet, let them say this verse: "We have received your mercy, O God, in the midst of your temple." In the reception of the poor and of pilgrims, the greatest care and solicitude should be shown, because it is especially in them that Christ is received. For as far as the rich are concerned, the very fear which they inspire wins respect for them. Let there be a separate kitchen for the abbot and guests, that the brethren may not be disturbed when guests, who are never lacking in a monastery, arrive at irregular hours. Let 2 brethren capable of filling the office well be appointed for a year to have charge of this kitchen. Let them be given such help as they need, that they may serve without murmuring. And on the other hand, when they have less to occupy them, let them go out to whatever work is assigned them. And not only in their case, but in all the offices of the monastery, let this arrangement be observed, that when help is needed, it be supplied, and again when the workers are unoccupied, they do whatever they are bidden. The guest house also shall be assigned to a brother whose soul is possessed by the fear of God. Let there be a sufficient number of beds made up in it, and let the house of God be managed by prudent men and in a prudent manner. On no account shall anyone who is not so ordered associate or converse with guests, but if he should meet them or see them, let him greet them humbly, as we have said, ask their blessing, and pass on, saying that he is not allowed to converse with a guest. Chapter 54. Whether a monk should receive letters or anything else. On no account shall a monk be allowed to receive letters, tokens, or any little gift whatsoever from his parents or anyone else, or from his brethren, or to give the same, without the abbot's permission. But if anything is sent him even by his parents, let him not presume to take it before it has been shown to the abbot. And it shall be in the abbot's power to decide to whom it shall be given, if he allows it to be received. And the brother to whom it was sent should not be grieved, lest occasion be given to the devil. Should anyone presume to act otherwise, let him undergo the discipline of the rule. Chapter 55. On the clothes and shoes of the brethren. Let clothing be given to the brethren according to the nature of the place in which they dwell and its climate, for in cold regions more will be needed, and in warm regions less. This is to be taken into consideration, therefore, by the abbot. We believe, however, that in ordinary places the following dress is sufficient for each monk: a tunic, a cowl, thick and woolly for winter, thin or worn for summer, a scapular for work, stockings and shoes to cover the feet. The monk should not complain about the color or the coarseness of any of these things, but be content with what can be found in the district where they live and can be purchased cheaply. The abbot shall see to the size of the garments, that they be not too short for those who wear them, but of the proper fit. Let those who receive new clothes always give back the old ones at once, to be put away in the wardrobe for the poor. For it is sufficient if a monk has 2 tunics and 2 cowls, to allow for night wear and for the washing of these garments. More than that is superfluity, and should be taken away. Let them return their stockings also, and anything else that is old, when they receive new ones. Those who are sent on a journey shall receive drawers from the wardrobe, which they shall wash and restore on their return. And let their cowls and tunics be somewhat better than what they usually wear. These they shall receive from the wardrobe when they set out on a journey, and restore when they return. For bedding, let this suffice: a mattress, a blanket, a coverlet, and a pillow. The beds, moreover, are to be examined frequently by the abbot, to see if any private property be found in them. If anyone should be found to have something that he did not receive from the abbot, let him undergo the most severe discipline. And in order that this vice of private ownership may be cut out by the roots, the abbot should provide all the necessary articles: cowl, tunic, stockings, shoes, girdle, knife, pen, needle, handkerchief, tablets, that all pretext of need may be taken away. Yet the abbot should always keep in mind the sentence from the Acts of the Apostles that distribution was made to each according as anyone had need. In this manner, therefore, let the abbot consider the weakness of the needy, not the ill will of the envious. But in all his decisions, let him think about the retribution of God. Chapter 56. On the Abbot's Table. Let the abbot's table always be with the guests and the pilgrims. But when there are no guests, let it be in his power to invite whom he will of the brethren. Yet 1 or 2 seniors must always be left with the brethren for the sake of discipline. Chapter 57. On the craftsmen of the monastery. If there are craftsmen in the monastery, let them practice their crafts with all humility, provided the abbot has given permission. But if any one of them becomes conceited over his skill in his craft, because he seems to be conferring a benefit on the monastery, let him be taken from his craft and no longer exercise it unless, after he has humbled himself, the abbot again gives him permission. If any of the work of the craftsman is to be sold, let those through whose hands the transactions pass see to it that they do not presume to practice any fraud. Let them always remember Ananias and Sapphira, lest perhaps the death which these incurred in the body, they themselves and any others who would deal dishonestly with the monastery's property should suffer in the soul. And in the prices let not the sin of avarice creep in, but let the goods always be sold a little cheaper than they can be sold by people in the world, that in all things God may be glorified. Chapter 58. On the manner of receiving brethren. When anyone is newly come for the reformation of his life, let him not be granted an easy entrance, but, as the Apostle says, test the spirits to see whether they are from God. If the newcomer, therefore, perseveres in his knocking, and it is seen after 4 or 5 days that he bears patiently the harsh treatment offered him and the difficulty of admission, and that he persists in his petition, then let entrance be granted him, and let him stay in the guest house for a few days. After that, let him live in the novitiate, where the novices study, eat, and sleep. A senior shall be assigned to them who is skilled in winning souls, to watch over them with the utmost care. Let him examine whether the novice is truly seeking God, and whether he is zealous for the work of God, for obedience and for humiliations. Let the novice be told all the hard and rugged ways by which the journey to God is made. If he promises stability and perseverance, then at the end of 2 months let this rule be read through to him, and let him be addressed thus: Here is the law under which you wish to fight. If you can observe it, enter. If you cannot, you are free to depart. If he still stands firm, let him be taken to the above-mentioned novitiate and again tested in all patience. And after the lapse of 6 months, let the rule be read to him, that he may know on what he is entering. And if he still remains firm, after 4 months, let the same rule be read to him again. Then, having deliberated with himself, if he promises to keep it in its entirety and to observe everything that is commanded him, let him be received into the community. But let him understand that, according to the law of the rule, from that day forward he may not leave the monastery nor withdraw his neck from under the yoke of the rule, which he was free to refuse or to accept during that prolonged deliberation. He who is to be received shall make a promise before all in the oratory of his stability and of the reformation of his life and of obedience. This promise he shall make before God and his saints, so that if he should ever act otherwise, he may know that he will be condemned by him whom he mocks. Of this promise of his, let him draw up a petition in the name of the saints whose relics are there, and of the abbot who is present. let him write this petition with his own hand, or if he is illiterate, let another write it at his request, and let the novice put his mark to it. Then let him place it with his own hand upon the altar, and when he has placed it there, let the novice at once intone this verse: Receive me, O Lord, according to your word, and I shall live, and let me not be confounded in my hope. Let the whole community answer this verse 3 times, and add the glory be to the Father. Then let the novice brother prostrate himself at each one's feet, that they may pray for him, and from that day forward let him be counted as one of the community. If he has any property, let him either give it beforehand to the poor, or by solemn donation bestow it on the monastery, reserving nothing at all for himself, as indeed he knows that from that day forward he will no longer have power even over his own body. At once, therefore, in the oratory, let him be divested of his own clothes which he is wearing, and dressed in the clothes of the monastery. But let the clothes of which he was divested be put aside in the wardrobe and kept there. Then if he should ever listen to the persuasions of the devil and decide to leave the monastery, which God forbid, he may be divested of the monastic clothes and cast out. His petition, however, which the abbot has taken from the altar, shall not be returned to him, but shall be kept in the monastery. Chapter 59. On the sons of nobles and of the poor who are offered. If any one of the nobility offers his son to God in the monastery, and the boy is very young, let his parents draw up the petition which we mentioned above, and at the oblation let them wrap the petition and the boy's hand in the altar cloth, and so offer him. As regards their property, they shall promise in the same petition under oath that they will never of themselves, or through an intermediary, or in any way whatever, give him anything, or provide him with the opportunity of owning anything. Or else, if they are unwilling to do this, and if they want to offer something as an alms to the monastery for their advantage, let them make a donation of the property they wish to give to the monastery, reserving the income to themselves if they wish. And in this way let everything be barred, so that the boy may have no expectations whereby, which God forbid, he might be deceived and ruined, as we have learned by experience. Let those who are less well-to-do make a similar offering, but those who have nothing at all shall simply draw up the petition and offer their son before witnesses at the oblation. Chapter 60. On priests who may wish to live in the monastery. If any one of the priestly order should ask to be received into the monastery, permission shall not be granted him too readily. But if he is quite persistent in his request, let him know that he will have to observe the whole discipline of the rule, and that nothing will be relaxed in his favor, that it may be as it is written, Friend, for what have you come? It shall be granted him, however, to stand next after the abbot, and to give blessings, and to celebrate Mass, but only by order of the abbot. Without such order let him not presume to do anything, knowing that he is subject to the discipline of the rule, but rather let him give an example of humility to all. If there happens to be question of an appointment or of some business in the monastery, let him expect the rank due him according to the date of his entrance into the monastery, and not the place granted him out of reverence for the priesthood. If any clerics, moved by the same desire, should wish to join the monastery, let them be placed in a middle rank, but they too are to be admitted only if they promise observance of the rule and their own stability. Chapter 61. How pilgrim monks are to be received. If a pilgrim monk coming from a distant region wants to live as a guest of the monastery, let him be received for as long a time as he desires, provided he is content with the customs of the place as he finds them, and does not disturb the monastery by superfluous demands, but is simply content with what he finds. If, however, he censures or points out anything reasonably and with the humility of charity, let the abbot consider prudently whether perhaps it was for that very purpose that the Lord sent him. If afterwards he should want to bind himself to stability, his wish should not be denied him, especially since there has been opportunity during his stay as a guest to discover his character. But if as a guest he was found exacting or prone to vice, Not only should he be denied membership in the community, but he should even be politely requested to leave, lest others be corrupted by his evil life. If, however, he has not proved to be the kind who deserves to be put out, he should not only on his own application be received as a member of the community, but he should even be persuaded to stay, that the others may be instructed by his example, and because in every place it is the same Lord who is served, the same King for whom the battle is fought. Moreover, if the abbot perceives that he is a worthy man, he may put him in a somewhat higher rank, and not only with regard to a monk, but also with regard to those in priestly or clerical orders previously mentioned, the abbot may establish them in a higher rank than would be theirs by date of entrance, if he perceives that their life is deserving. Let the abbot take care, however, never to receive a monk from another known monastery as a member of his community without the consent of his abbot or a letter of recommendation. For it is written, "Do not to another what you would not want done to yourself." Chapter 62. On the priests of the monastery. If an abbot desire to have a priest or a deacon ordained for his monastery, let him choose one of his monks who is worthy to exercise the priestly office. But let the one who is ordained beware of self-exaltation or pride, and let him not presume to do anything except what is commanded him by the abbot, knowing that he is so much the more subject to the discipline of the rule. Nor should he by reason of his priesthood forget the obedience and the discipline required by the rule, but make ever more and more progress towards God. Let him always keep the place which he received on entering the monastery, except in his duties at the altar, or in case the choice of the community and the will of the abbot should promote him for the worthiness of his life. Yet he must understand that he is to observe the rules laid down by deans and priors. Should he presume to act otherwise, let him be judged not as a priest, but as a rebel. And if he does not reform after repeated admonitions, let even the bishop be brought in as a witness. If then he still fails to amend, and his offenses are notorious, let him be put out of the monastery, but only if his contumacy is such that he refuses to submit or to obey the rule. Chapter 63. On the Order of the Community. Let all keep their places in the monastery established by the time of their entrance, the merit of their lives, and the decision of the abbot. Yet the abbot must not disturb the flock committed to him, nor by an arbitrary use of his power ordain anything unjustly, but let him always think of the account he will have to render to God for all his decisions and his deeds. Therefore, in that order which he has established or which they already had, let the brethren approach to receive the kiss of peace and communion, intone the psalms, and stand in choir. And in no place whatever should age decide the order or be prejudicial to it, for Samuel and Daniel as mere boys judged priests. Except for those already mentioned, therefore, whom the abbot has promoted by a special decision or demoted for definite reasons, all the rest shall take their order according to the time of their entrance. Thus, for example, he who came to the monastery at the second hour of the day, whatever be his age or his dignity, must know that he is junior to one who came at the first hour of the day. Boys, however, are to be kept under discipline in all matters and by everyone. The juniors, therefore, should honor their seniors, and the seniors love their juniors. In the very manner of address, let no one call another by the mere name, but let the seniors call the juniors brothers, and the juniors call their seniors fathers, by which is conveyed the reverence due to a father. But the abbot, since he is believed to represent Christ, shall be called Lord and Abbot, not for any pretensions of his own, but out of honor and love for Christ. Let the abbot himself reflect on this, and show himself worthy of such an honor. And wherever the brethren meet one another, the junior shall ask the senior for his blessing. When a senior passes by, a junior shall rise and give him a place to sit, nor shall the junior presume to sit with him unless his senior bid him, that it may be as was written, in honor anticipating one another. Boys, both small and adolescent, shall keep strictly to their rank in oratory and at table, But outside of that, wherever they may be, let them be under supervision and discipline until they come to the age of discretion. Chapter 64. On Constituting an Abbot. In the constituting of an abbot, let this plan always be followed, that the office be conferred on the one who is chosen either by the whole community unanimously in the fear of God, or else by a part of the community, however small, if its counsel is more wholesome. Merit of life and wisdom of doctrine should determine the choice of the one to be constituted, even if he be the last in the order of the community. But if, which God forbid, the whole community should agree to choose a person who will acquiesce in their vices, and if those vices somehow become known to the bishop to whose diocese the place belongs, or to the abbots or the faithful of the vicinity, let them prevent the success of this conspiracy of the wicked, and set a worthy steward over the house of God. They may be sure that they will receive a good reward for this action if they do it with a pure intention and out of zeal for God, as on the contrary they will sin if they fail to do it. Once he has been constituted, let the abbot always bear in mind what a burden he has undertaken, and to whom he will have to give an account of his stewardship. Let him know that his duty is rather to profit his brethren than to preside over them. He must therefore be learned in the divine law, that he may have a treasure of knowledge from which to bring forth new things and old. He must be chaste, sober, and merciful. Let him exalt mercy above judgment, that he himself may obtain mercy. He should hate vices, he should love the brethren. In administering correction, he should act prudently, and not go to excess, lest in seeking too eagerly to scrape off the rust, he break the vessel. Let him keep his own frailty ever before his eyes, and remember that the bruised reed must not be broken. By this we do not mean that he should allow vices to grow. On the contrary, as we have already said, he should eradicate them prudently and with charity, in the way which may seem best in each case. Let him study rather to be loved than to be feared. Let him not be excitable and worried, nor exacting and headstrong, nor jealous and over-suspicious, for then he is never at rest. In his commands let him be prudent and considerate, and whether the work which he enjoins concerns God or the world, let him be discreet and moderate, bearing in mind the discretion of holy Jacob, who said, "If I cause my flocks to be overdriven, they will all die in one day." Taking this, then, and other examples of discretion, the mother of virtues, let him so temper all things that the strong may have something to strive after, and the weak may not fall back in dismay. And especially let him keep this rule in all its details, so that after a good ministry he may hear from the Lord what the good servant heard who gave his fellow servants wheat in due season. Indeed, I tell you, he will set him over all his goods. Chapter 65. On the Prior of the Monastery. It happens all too often that the constituting of a prior gives rise to grave scandals in monasteries, for there are some who become inflated with the evil spirit of pride and consider themselves second abbots. By usurping power they foster scandals and cause dissensions in the community. Especially does this happen in those places where the prior is constituted by the same bishop or the same abbots who constituted the abbot himself. What an absurd procedure this is can easily be seen, for it gives the prior an occasion for becoming proud from the very time of his constitution, by putting the thought into his mind that he is freed from the authority of his abbot. For he will say to himself, "You were constituted by the same persons who constituted the abbot." From this source are stirred up envy, quarrels, detraction, rivalry, dissensions, and disorders. For while the abbot and the prior are at variance, their souls cannot but be endangered by this dissension, and those who are under them, currying favor with one side or the other, go to ruin. The guilt for this dangerous state of affairs rests on the heads of those whose action brought about such disorder. To us, therefore, it seems expedient for the preservation of peace and charity that the abbot have in his hands the full administration of his monastery, and if possible, let all the affairs of the monastery, as we have already arranged, be administered by deans according to the abbot's discretions, Thus, with the duties being shared by several, no one person will become proud. But if the circumstances of the place require it, or if the community asks for it with reason and with humility, and the abbot judges it to be expedient, let the abbot himself constitute as his prior whomsoever he shall choose with the counsel of God-fearing brethren. That prior, however, shall perform respectfully the duties enjoined on him by his abbot, and do nothing against the abbot's will or direction. For the more he is raised above the rest, the more carefully should he observe the precepts of the rule. If it should be found that the prior has serious faults, or that he is deceived by his exaltation and yields to pride, or if he should be proved to be a despiser of the holy rule, let him be admonished verbally up to 4 times. If he fails to amend, let the correction of regular discipline be applied to him. But if even then he does not reform, let him be deposed from the office of prior, and another be appointed in his place who is worthy of it. And if afterwards he is not quiet and obedient in the community, let him even be expelled from the monastery. But the abbot for his part should bear in mind that he will have to render an account to God for all his judgments, lest the flame of envy or jealousy be kindled in his soul. Chapter 66. On the Porters of the Monastery. At the gate of the monastery let there be placed a wise old man, who knows how to receive and to give a message, and whose maturity will prevent him from straying about. This porter should have a room near the gate, so that those who come may always find someone at hand to attend to their business. And as soon as anyone knocks, or a poor man hails him, let him answer, "Thanks be to God," or a blessing. Then let him attend to them promptly, with all the meekness inspired by the fear of God and with the warmth of charity. Should the porter need help, let him have one of the younger brethren. If it can be done, the monastery should be so established that all the necessary things, such as water, mill, garden, and various workshops, may be within the enclosure, so that there is no necessity for the monks to go about outside of it, since that is not at all profitable for their souls. We desire that this rule be read often in the community, so that none of the brethren may excuse himself on the ground of ignorance. Chapter 67. On brethren who are sent on a journey. Let the brethren who are sent on a journey commend themselves to the prayers of all the brethren and of the abbot, and always at the last prayer of the work of God let a commemoration be made of all absent brethren. When brethren return from a journey, at the end of each canonical hour of the work of God on the day they return, let them lie prostrate on the floor of the oratory and beg the prayers of all on account of any faults that may have surprised them on the road, through the seeing or hearing of something evil or through idle talk. And let no one presume to tell another whatever he may have seen or heard outside of the monastery, because this causes very great harm. But if anyone presumes to do so, let him undergo the punishment of the rule, and let him be punished likewise who would presume to leave the enclosure of the monastery and go anywhere or do anything, however small, without an order from the abbot. Chapter 68. If a brother is commanded to do impossible things. If it happens that difficult or impossible tasks are laid on a brother, let him nevertheless receive the order of the one in authority with all meekness and obedience. But if he sees that the weight of the burden altogether exceeds the limit of his strength, let him submit the reasons for his inability to the one who is over him in a quiet way and at an opportune time, without pride, resistance, or contradiction. And if after these representations the superior still persists in his decision and command, let the subject know that this is for his good, and let him obey out of love, trusting in the help of God. Chapter 69. That the monks presume not to defend one another. Care must be taken that no monk presume on any ground to defend another monk in the monastery, or as it were to take him under his protection, even though they be united by some tie of blood relationship. Let not the monks dare to do this in any way whatsoever, because it may give rise to most serious scandals. But if anyone breaks this rule, let him be severely punished. Chapter 70. That no one venture to punish at random. Every occasion of presumption shall be avoided in the monastery, and we decree that no one be allowed to excommunicate or to strike any of his brethren unless the abbot has given him the authority. Those who offend in this matter shall be rebuked in the presence of all, that the rest may have fear. But boys up to 15 years of age shall be carefully controlled and watched by all, yet this too with all moderation and discretion. Anyone, therefore, who presumes without the abbot's instructions to punish those above that age, or who loses his temper with the boys, shall undergo the discipline of the rule. For it is written, "Do not to another what you would not want done to yourself." Chapter 71. That the brethren be obedient to one another. Not only is the boon of obedience to be shown by all to the abbot, but the brethren are also to obey one another, knowing that by this road of obedience they are going to God. Giving priority, therefore, to the commands of the abbot and of the superiors appointed by him, to which we allow no private orders to be preferred. For the rest, let all the juniors obey their seniors with all charity and solicitude. But if anyone is found contentious, let him be corrected. And if any brother, for however small a cause, is corrected in any way by the abbot or by any of his superiors, or if he faintly perceives that the mind of any superior is angered or moved against him, however little, let him at once, without delay, prostrate himself on the ground at his feet, and lie there, making satisfaction, until that emotion is quieted with a blessing. But if anyone should disdain to do this, let him undergo corporal punishment, or, if he is stubborn, let him be expelled from the monastery. Chapter 72. On the good zeal which monks ought to have. Just as there is an evil zeal of bitterness which separates from God and leads to hell, so there is good zeal which separates from vices and leads to God and to life everlasting. This zeal, therefore, the monks should practice with the most fervent love. Thus they should anticipate one another in honor, most patiently endure one another's infirmities, whether of body or of character, vie in paying obedience one to another, no one following what he considers useful for himself, but rather what benefits another. Tender the charity of brotherhood chastely, fear God in love, love their abbot with a sincere and humble charity, prefer nothing whatever to Christ, and may he bring us all together to life everlasting. Chapter 73. On the fact that the full observance of justice is not established in this rule. Now, we have written this rule in order that by its observance in monasteries we may show that we have attained some degree of virtue and the rudiments of the religious life. But for him who would hasten to the perfection of that life, there are the teachings of the Holy Fathers, the observance of which leads a man to the height of perfection. For what page or what utterance of the divinely inspired books of the Old and New Testaments is not a most unerring rule for human life? Or what book of the Holy Catholic Fathers does not loudly proclaim how we may come by a straight course to our Creator? Then the conferences and the institutes and the lives of the Fathers, as also the rule of our Holy Father Basil, what else are they but tools of virtue for right living and obedient monks? But for us who are lazy and ill-living and negligent, they are a source of shame and confusion. Whoever you are, therefore, who are hastening to the heavenly homeland, fulfill with the help of Christ this minimum rule which we have written for beginners, and then at length, under God's protection, you will attain to the loftier heights of doctrine and virtue which we have mentioned above. This has been The Rule of Saint Benedict, chapters 39 through 73, by Saint Benedict of Nursia, narrated by James T. Majewski. Production copyright 2025 by Trinity Communications. This podcast is a production of CatholicCulture.org. Check out our other podcasts, including Way of the Fathers, a church history podcast hosted by Jim Papandrea, Criteria, the Catholic film podcast, featuring deep analysis of great films from a Catholic perspective, and the Catholic Culture Podcast, an interview show exploring Catholic arts, culture, and issues. You'll find all of this and more at CatholicCulture.org.